So my name is Paul Greenhead. So I joined Jadu from 20 years of working in public sector and with public sector, leading digital transformation and helping organisations deliver real sustainable change. So I'm really excited to be here to run this expert panel. So Suraj talked earlier about our digital layer strategy. So we recognise that technology, as amazing as it is, isn't always a silver bullet. It's not going to solve all of our problems immediately. And that's one of the reasons why we've set up our Jadu consulting team to be able to partner with our customers and help them apply business transformation skills and tools, things like service design, data analytics, change management, and to be able to use these things to be able to deliver value really quickly, but also to be able to share knowledge and to upskill your teams. And I'm delighted to be joined here by some of our customers we're currently working with. So we've got an expert panel in the room who are going to share some of their experiences, some of the insights and learning they've got from doing some of this work of taking the digital layer strategy, combining it with business transformation skills and capabilities to deliver some really exciting changes within their organizations. So without further ado, I'll let the panel introduce themselves.
So hi everyone, I'm Phil Quickenden. I'm the Head of Customer and Registration Services at the London Borough of Camden. And I've been working with Jadu around change management specifically, kind of recognising what Suraj was saying earlier about the importance of culture in making this next step. And as we're going through our transformation journey, that's really where we're starting, is looking at the culture change we need to make.
Brilliant. Hi, I'm Rhian. I'm Managing Consultant here at Jadu. I've got a background in public sector, so I worked in the police and I worked in local government. I've done a whole range of digital projects, but also I've done emerging and new technologies at Swindon Borough Council. So I've got that experience of working both from the sort of within local government, but also consulting now with public sector organisations. So it's brilliant to be working both with Phil and Richard on a number of projects at the moment.
Morning, my name is Richard Beards. I'm the Web and Innovation Manager for West Northampton Council. So this was a new role that was created about 18 months ago for me, so no pressure on that one. The aim of the role is to create a culture of innovation within the council, so looking at emerging technologies, trialling things, trying to find where our problem statements are, wicked issues within the council, and then trying to match that up to new technology, do trials, pilots, and see where hopefully we can solve some of those problems. So we've been working for this year with Rhian's team on the AI and Send project, trying to use this kind of technology to improve our send delivery service, speed things up behind the scenes. So I think we'll probably talk about that a little bit later on.
Yeah, so Richard's got a session to cover that a little bit later on today, so we won't dive straight into the AI side. But one of the things I want to ask you about, Richard, is obviously there's a real buzz within your organisation about AI. Huge amounts of attention and pressure from the C-suite.
Cheers, Paul.
How do you manage those expectations? Can you share with the group about what you've been doing at North West Hands?
Yeah, it's tricky because on the one hand, I like to under-promise and then hopefully over-deliver, or at least deliver. But in my role, you're trying to get excitement, you're trying to get buy-in to do things. So, doing that at the same time as then not over-promising is a tricky one. The project we've done with the AI and Send, that was, we found a real need in that. I'm sure every Send department across the organisation, across different councils, has got lots of pressures. So we knew they've got pressures there in terms of the speed it takes to deliver that service. We've got a relationship with them anyway. I think that's key in terms of having that relationship. So getting the buy-in from them to do the project was quite easy. When we did the first pitch to them, we'd had the idea of doing it, went to their senior management team, all their managers were there, and we pitched it. We had no idea at that stage how we would do it, but we said, look, we could use AI to improve the service. And the buy-in from the room was fantastic. The senior managers were the ones who were nervous, but the managers underneath that, and the people on the ground, were really keen on it. So from that point of view, that brought the momentum for us to do the project and crack on from there.
That sounds great. Is there any advice you give colleagues in the room about how to have that conversation about AI with a leader or with a chief executive?
Yeah, so probably 12 months ago, we were pitching the ideas of how we could use AI and different technologies to senior managers and the managers underneath that, and we weren't getting any traction really. Everyone was like, we're using the word innovation. That didn't mean anything to anybody. So that was kind of a mistake. That was myself and our head of our DTI service, every single service, and we didn't get too much traction. And then this year, we started to keep chipping away at members. So we'd go to member days, and we started to gather use cases from other councils of where it made a difference. And members were really buying into it. So a lot of the members were really keen for us to do it. And then they almost started to put the pressure on, lower down to the directors to say, why aren't we innovating? Why aren't we doing this? Can we do more of this? And that has really helped to build the momentum internally there.
That sounds great.
I think just to add to that, I think one of the things you've also done and I've seen is working with that C-suite and members to help them understand the methodologies that you're using and manage those expectations right at the beginning of projects. In those engagement sessions, so that they're really clear of what you're going into and the fact that proof of concepts might not necessarily succeed, and that's okay. That's part of that trialing and testing to manage that right at the beginning. But it's challenging, right?
Yeah. When we kicked off the this project, we made a bit of noise about it. We had lots of our chief exec, assistant chief exec there. Steve came in and did a fantastic presentation pitching what this pilot is, what it isn't. Everyone's on board with it. And then as you start to go through the project, it's like, okay, the word pilot and things like that goes out the window. This is a project. You're going to be delivering AI. This is what it will do. So it's great that they're having that buy-in and they're getting excited by it. But yeah, I think keep reminding people that it is a proof of concept. There's no guarantee. I mean, I think that's, that is a challenge that you've just got to keep sharing that message. I think there's no guaranteed results at the end of it.
Absolutely, and that can sometimes be a difficult conversation for a more traditional organisation. So really, you've worked across lots of different types of projects. Let's call it kind of classical digital transformation, where you're optimising a existing process, and things that are much more experimental, like the work that we're doing with Richard. What are the sorts of things, the differences that you've noticed between those types of work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the consistent themes is that agile principle of being able to fail fast. If you've not got the right use case, you need to be able to pivot really quickly. And preparing people for that. Sometimes it's not the right time. Things are changing. Different procurements might be coming up. You need to have that view. But when things change with it. And I think the other thing is thinking around AI. We're trying to replicate some of the human-based decision-making or recommendations. And therefore, we need to really understand how humans are working. And I think anybody who's done traditional user research might take a moment and say, well, that's really expensive, that can be really time consuming. And so with the AI projects, it's about being really pragmatic about that user research. You do need it to understand because you want to train your models around that, but you need to time box it and be really specific about what you're trying to get out of it, and be really clear how that feeds into the AI. And actually probably user personas, I've never seen them used as effectively as in these emerging technology projects, because the developers then start to get that view in. So that's probably one of the main differences.
So we've got that exciting mix of AI, technology, but also bringing in sort of tried and tested sort of tools and techniques from a business transformation perspective. So Richard, could you share with the audience a bit about your experience of working with Rhian and the team?
Yeah, I think there's probably three key areas for me that have really impressed me. The very beginning, the first day, we'd got our SEND team in a room. There's about 5 or 6 of them, some of the schools, the SENCOs. And Rhian just led the session, the discovery session, their process, just to map it all out. One of the slides I'll show later is like their end-to-end process. I think they were shocked when they saw it, all the different handoff points, all the different automated points, all the bits they're doing manually. It was right across the room. But the way she managed that, our SEND team have been hammered for a long time. There's so much pressure on that team, so much bad publicity because of the times it's taken to do certain things. But the way Rhian was, she was really empathetic with them, created a great relationship on the day, and they just opened up and were totally honest about every single thing that they do. So that was the first one that was really impressive. Part of the project was to build a form, so the EHCP form, the Education, Health and Care Plan form. This is a beast of a form. So in my head, when we were talking about AI, it was like the whole project, you're managing the project, you're going through the day-to-day. The actual coding part and how you build the AI model, I never even thought about that. I presumed someone clever would just do that behind the scenes once we decided what we wanted to do. But there was a really good workshop we had. Once we'd got the form design, we had a workshop, we've got the Miro board where we've got screenshots of all of the form. There's lots and lots of questions in this form. And it was going through with all the SENCOs, with the schools, what are the key questions that will generate an automatic yes for this. The child will go through to have an assessment. And it was just brilliant. I'd never even thought about it like that. And Rhian and the team went through it, every single question, really dragging out of the SENCOs, which is the key question? What are the killer questions that you would look for manually to then go to the next stage? So I thought that was fantastic. And then the last one, everything we do at West Northamptonshire with the SEND service, it's co-produced. That word is ingrained in me that I will never forget that word. So it's co-produced with the parents. We have a parent forum with the SEND service. So One of the days, the second part of the pilot was building a kind of chatbot with our local offer service. So really trying to make it easier to find the information that we've got within our local offer. They were having a picnic in the park, and Rhian said, right, why don't we go to that? We'll go and talk to the parents, talk about the local offer. How do they use it? Is it easy to use? Would they use a chatbot? Would they find it useful? And it was just a brilliant day, really breaking it down. It wasn't a technology day. It was just meeting the parents in the park. Every time Rhian comes to West Northampton, the sun shines. We've had about 3 days of sun this year. So if you want a good day, invite her to your area. I'm sure the sun will shine. But that was great, PR-wise, for us to be there, for our IT service to be there. But to build that relationship with the service, just show our willing to go out there. This wasn't a technology project. This wasn't us just, ticking boxes. This was like really showing that we wanted to get to the heart of who your users are, who your customers are, how they would use the website. And it was, really positive day and positive results.
That's great to hear, and I'm really pleased you talked about empathy, because one of the things we're really focused on with building out the Jadu consulting team is bringing in people who've got experience of being in the shoes of our customers, who've delivered services, who've been on the front line, and that allows us to kind of understand and more quickly kind of pick up those connections and conversations. But I suppose listening to what you were saying there, Richard, what underlies all of that is change and change management and the way in which you can kind of guide people along that journey. So really, this is your area of a real interest. Can you talk to us about the importance of change and how that delivers benefits for customers?
Yeah, so I'm a ProSci qualified practitioner, so if anybody's done any ProSci, they'll know that it's a methodology that you use, it's data-driven, etc. And I guess this is where I think change management can have this fluffy view, and actually we're taking that out of that and we're linking it to the benefits. You're 7 times more likely to achieve your benefits if you have effective change management, and that's why I got into change management and how it started to link in together. So when Phil started talking to me about some of the transformation that he wanted to achieve and the benefits he wanted to get out of, and how did he take his team around that, along that, actually we were able to decouple different things and work with you specifically around your change management, because you don't have that organisational capability currently or previously, and you're starting to build that, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So Phil, it's a great point to bring you in. Can you give us an overview of the change management work we've partnered with you to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as with every local authority, Camden's on a journey, a transformation journey, and I guess my area, customer services, we've really focused on some quite significant structural change, some new technology. But I found myself, like probably many of you do in the room, which is like, well, we've got the tools, we've got the people, but now we need to make this shift and we need to make this stick. And that's where I had a conversation with Rhi about how do I galvanise my team around this, and what are the structural things we can do now to support that that kind of holistic change management and the longevity of that change management, so things really do stick. And so Rhi and Steve came to join us in Camden, did some really detailed focus workshops with my senior team, where we kind of explored the tools that Rhi alluded to. And I think just that, I personally found it to be actually a really intense process. It was quite challenging at points, but actually, the impact that's had in terms of our change journey and how we approach change now. So we actually approach our whole program with a lens of change management over the top. We've changed our program management tools to include the methodology, the ADCAR methodology that Rhi shared with us, and that's allowed us to kind of really make sure we are bedding this in, baked into our kind of day-to-day working.
That sounds great. So tell us a bit more about how you've applied those tools and the benefit that they provided to your organisation. Yeah,
we've actually taken the model, the ADCAR model, and pushed it into our reporting, our program reporting. So we have a traditional program template, but it's now appended with a second page, which is all around our kind of change management approach. So it means that as we're making decisions, we're not just thinking about how quickly do we get this bit of tech out in front of somebody, but actually, how do we get them in the position that they want to see this bit of tech in front of them and they know what to do with it when we give it to them. And we've put ourselves out on that journey, I think it's fair to say. We've found that we tend to rush things, and we've learned to pace ourselves perhaps a little bit better. But it's it's become a kind of it's just so bedded in now to the way we work that we talk about it, regularly in our meetings. It's become a fundamental of how we operate.
And it's really nice to see Emily from your team like smiling and nodding to this, because Emily was in the workshop, so like we've worked with you all the way through, haven't we? So if anybody wants to hear about what it's actually like to do that piece, do have a chat with Emily. Because I think it is those tools, isn't it? Like, they don't have to be really complex, but if you don't add that layer, tech on its own isn't going to solve it. And it has to be that holistic look if you want to get those benefits out. And when we're looking at innovating, we need to be really clear if are we doing it for the right reasons? Is it because there isn't a different technological tech solution out there that we've tried everything, that we've linked together? Have we had so at Swindon, we had a really good IT solutions group. So we'd had like architects, we'd have business analysts, we'd have different people connected around the business coming together and working out what was the right way to solve a problem. And that innovation layer was that top tier. It's the most expensive thing to do. It's not guaranteed in terms of where you're investing that piece. But then if you're doing that piece and that investment, why would you not then do that wrap of change management to actually get that bit out? And it was so much fun working with Camden. It was only 2 days workshop, wasn't it? This wasn't massive. But I think even we've been surprised and really pleased to hear the level of how it's been embedded from those 2 days, and that you can make that shift within a short amount of time if you're committed and sponsoring that.
Absolutely. And it was 2 days of workshops, but you're coming back to do another 2 days of workshops, which tells you how...
With a different group.
Yeah. So it's definitely made an impact. And I think, so far we've focused on how we use those change methodologies within my department and my service. And actually now we're getting to the stage that through some of the work Emily's doing, actually the voice of the customer work, we're starting to apply that technique to our interactions with other services. So we're kind of managing the whole organisation out from our department now, which is the start of my empire.
And that's how change is actually effectively delivered. It's brilliant if you've got that sponsorship, and it's really important to projects. But actually having that coalition of sponsorship, that's how change gets made. So when you've got people who can start linking it in, the conversations that Emily's having across that organisation, those are the ones which fundamentally transform that organisation, because it's not just coming from the top, it's people buying in and seeing that difference.
It's really great to hear. So one of the things that we try and focus on at Jadu is upskilling customers, whether that's through training on the platform or training in techniques. So that's clearly a big part of the experience that your teams have, Phil. Rhi, tell us a bit about how you approach that upskilling with customers.
Yeah, so we've got a show share support model that we do. So we want people to understand sort of where we're coming from, the methodology, the practices, etc. And then we want to work collaboratively with people through that piece, so it kind of makes sense within the world. And that's why having that local government experience across our team changes the way we work, because it's not an abstract that we're just applying a theory to. And then it's that supporting people to then implement it. So for the workshops that we did with you, your team responded brilliantly. So we went through some theories and methodologies, etc., applying that to the Camden context, using those tools. And then your team on day 2 in the afternoon, Emily's smiling at this point because she was there, she knows how significant it was. We brought the next tier of managers in, and the team played that through with them. They delivered those messages that were really key to their transformation goals. And so that's change in action. And not every team will respond in that way, but what they were able to achieve and how they were able to coalesce as a group over the 2 days, because you were a new team forming, it was just phenomenal to see. And it's just that small part of investment. It's not massive, but the way it shifted things, for me, it's one of the most powerful messages and things that I've been involved with. And it's really cool to have seen that group work through that space.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I think that's what really impressed me with the workshops, was it was practical. So you talked about sometimes people see change as a bit fluffy. I think change is a bit fluffy a lot of the time. And my background in local government and before that in policing, I've seen lots of change and lots of different approaches, and actually was a bit jaded and sceptical, if I'm honest. But actually applying those tools and seeing it work, and seeing it work with you and Steve there to support us. And I think just following on from something Richard said, having that shared local government language, so you could empathise with what we were saying, you understood that the challenges of trying to deliver this stuff in the field. I think that was quite reassuring and helped us make that shift from fluffy theory into actual tangible tools.
Absolutely. And I think we're seeing that with West Northampton at the moment in terms of what you're doing. So you didn't have the digital foundations in place for the first one. I don't know if you'll talk about that later. We've had to do some of those digital foundations and work in that live space. So that change management started to come in and like change communications. Lucy's there. She's going to talk about it later. And it's that's what makes the difference, isn't it? That's what lands things or not. I think we've all been involved in seeing those projects which don't really make that difference if it's just a bit of tech, or why are people not using it? Why don't they understand it? We've done that bit.
I think that is the key to learning from my side is because it's AI, it's still the same sort of methodology you would use for any project. I think we get carried away. I get carried away thinking, this is emerging technology. You forget all those other principles and you just think AI. If we'd have thought backwards and then thought what the end result was, this form's going to go live. In my head, the form's going to go live. All the parents and Senkos and schools are going to fill this form in. We'll be collecting the data. That data is going to go into our AI model. We can learn things. That's going to help us make those decisions. Not thinking the form is the most important thing in this. You've got to make sure the form is spot on and that the people filling the form in are totally engaged and it's really easy for them. That was kind of like, in my head, I've skipped that bit. It was just the AI part. So that's definitely a learning point. Just make sure you get the basics in the project right. Who is the main user? What are they going to be doing? Make sure they're fully engaged, that bit's right. And then when the AI part comes along, that is the icing on the cake in this project, rather than thinking that is the dominant thing in the project.
So that's a really useful insight, in terms of thinking.
Painful insight.
Well, it's painful insight, but this session is all about kind of sharing that learning and sharing those insights so that others in the room can take advantage of what you've learned at your organisation and sort of play that into how they think about doing this sort of thing with their organisations. So just sticking with the culture theme and the change theme, is there anything that you would have done differently now you are at the point you are in your journey when it comes to change and how you introduce kind of some really quite exciting technologies to a very sort of mixed audience in terms of their starting points?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because in my role, it is about thinking of the technology part first and then working backwards then. AI is the solution, then working back or whatever solution it is, rather than thinking we're going to do the workshop first or the discovery, because it becomes, there's lots of other automation that could fix this problem. That's not me who will do it. It's not my team that will do it. So I am thinking back to front. I think Rhian said, make sure you get the right pilot. I think we worked in the send service. You can't get a more sensitive service than that. But that was one of our problems, our wicked issues. So that got us the in to do the project in the first place. So with that comes the risk, comes with all the eyes on that project, comes with the pressure. Probably for the first AI project, I would have picked something, that was a little less easier to do, build it up, build those skills up, get that learning up, rather than being like, this is a very tough one on the ground to do. But we have learned, so many lessons from it that we can apply in our book and film that we'll make after this project.
There you go. You heard it here first. Book and film on the way. So thanks very much for that, Richard. So same question to you, Phil. Thinking about the experience you've had leading kind of large transformations, is there any advice that you'd share with the audience from your experience to date?
Yeah, I think, I guess I've already made the point that change is pink and fluffy, but at the same time, it can be really, really practical. And I think, understanding, having a tool suite that helps you land that change and be focused on the longevity of it, not just an implementation, but what's that roadmap going forward to ensure that change is really embedded is critical. And I think, having the support of an organisation with the skills that Rhian and the team bring has been critical for us on that journey. I think it opens up some really good conversations and frankly, a little bit too much challenge sometimes. But has kept us on our toes and it's made sure that we've delivered what we said we were going to do.
So I can see my colleagues kind of signaling at me that we're approaching the end of time. So I'll ask one more question to Rhian. Is there anything that you'd share, having kind of worked on both of these projects? Are there any kind of lessons that you think the audience would benefit from learning?
I think it's that going back and reflecting on all the different projects that anybody's ever done. The lessons, you've worked it, you've seen it and stuff, and then just taking that step back and saying, how are we doing that and how are we mitigating that in this instance? I think that's absolutely critical. none of it is rocket science. It's the same process, whether or not it's that project or whether it's traditional transformation stuff or innovation. There are nuances, but overall that process is the same.
Thanks very much. I'm sure we could talk for much longer. I hope you've enjoyed the insights that have been shared. So the team are here all day, so please feel free to connect with them during the networking sessions, pick their brains a bit further, ask them any specific questions that might relate to your organisation. Richard's doing a session later, so he'll get more into the detail of the AI Send project that he's been running. And we're also going to be running some webinars. So we're sending the information out with the follow-up that comes from the day to day. So there's going to be a webinar in November where Phil and Rhian are going to talk about benefits management and how that's really important in terms of getting it set up right at the beginning so you can realise and recognise the value of all of this innovative work that you're doing. So I'd like you to kind of join together with me, give them a big round of applause.